Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast. I'd like to kick off this podcast by announcing the two winners of the Dash Mini Bundt Cake Maker. Congratulations to John Cave and William Fleming. Now here's the deal. I had to draw 8 names before I finally found these two guys that responded back to me. That means there were 6 people that could have won this Dash Mini Bundt Maker. For each one of them, I notified them in the comments and I told them they had 24 hours to get back to me, and they didn't. Which leads me to believe they probably didn't have notifications turned on. This is why I harp on notifications all the time. So maybe pause this video in a moment after I tell you what to do and check your notification settings. That way, if I ever reply to you for any reason, or especially if we have another contest, which we will, you'll get notified. So what you want to do is from your main menu, this is on a PC, laptop, I'm not sure how to do this on every single mobile device, but on a PC, from the main YouTube screen, click on Settings. Then, over on the left-hand side, click Notifications. Then in the main portion of this screen, that bottom chunk is all about the notifications you can turn on or off. For example, do you want to be notified when any of your subscribed channels releases a video? That might be a good one to turn on if you want to make sure you see my videos. But for the sake of a contest, the one you really want to have turned on is the one related to replies to my comments. My meaning yours, not mine. So maybe pause this video, go into your settings, fix that, come back, or just, make a note of it and do it after you watch this video. Because I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to win whenever I have one of these little giveaways. Now, if you're on a mobile device, a TV, something like that, you may still need to go into that particular device's preferences for notifications to make sure that they're turned on as well. But that goes well beyond the scope of my IT support that I can offer. So this past week, my wife and I went up to Door County, Wisconsin for it kind of felt like a second honeymoon of sorts. It was a combination of our 24th anniversary and my wife's birthday. We have those back to back. Kind of cool because I can double down on gifts. I kid. I give her gifts for both. And while we were up there, I did break keto protocol. We went out to a very nice restaurant and they brought a basket of bread out, some fresh baked bread, and I just couldn't fight it. I was going to have it. This was our anniversary. I was going to have some bread. So, had a couple slices of bread. The next morning, we went out to a nice restaurant again for breakfast, and I had some rye toast with some cherry jam. Very good, also. The day after this, my ketones were at 1.2 and 0.9, respectively, and this morning they're back up to 1.3. So, didn't kick me out of keto. I believe that sensible keto means sometimes you can kind of lean off the wagon a little bit to keep yourself from falling off the wagon. And now I've pretty much satisfied my desire for toast for the foreseeable future. Now, interestingly, on our drive back home, we had to stop because my wife and I had to go to the bathroom. That's not the interesting part. But we stopped at a Quick Trip, which is a convenience store / gas station, very big up in this part of the country. We went in, both hit the restroom, and then, my wife needed to grab some carby snacks, some bugles and some crackers or something. And I went over and I was thinking maybe I'd grab a hard-boiled egg, and I saw these little individual pouches of baked chicken. And this was a baked chicken in green sauce. I haven't tried it yet because it turned out I wasn't all that hungry. This is still not the interesting part of the story. It is kind of cool, though, that convenience stores now are carrying a lot more items for keto folks that are traveling. So that felt good. But what was wild, and now here we go, hopefully you'll find this interesting, as we were walking up to the cashier, he looks at me, points at me, and says, "Serious Keto." And I thought, am I wearing a Serious Keto t-shirt? And I looked down and I wasn't. So he actually just recognized me. He recognized my face. And it's kind of wild. This is the second time I've been recognized out in public. And I think one of the reasons I don't get recognized more often is, first off, 83,000 subscribers spread across the globe. What's the likelihood, really, that I'm going to get recognized? So it's a huge surprise for me. But also, since March, I don't venture out a whole lot besides grocery store and Costco. Pretty much have been hunkered down ever since then. So it's kind of amusing to me that this one time that we've gone out in the past 6 months, more than 15 minutes away from my house, I get seen and recognized. So that was very cool. Andrew, it was very neat meeting you. Too bad we couldn't have, shaken hands and had a little bit of a chat, but times being as they are, it was still great to meet you. So, Andrew, cool. I want to talk for just a minute about reviews. And we've had sort of a glut of them. I mentioned this in one of the previous podcasts, kind of give you the heads up that it was coming. A lot of my affiliate marketing partners are all releasing new products simultaneously, so I kind of had to do, a review a week. And when I reviewed the Keto-Mojo, one of the things people questioned is, well, why didn't you do multiple tests in a row to test for consistency? And the reason for that is, one, I didn't feel like burning through a ton of glucose and ketone strips. I kind of got tired of poking myself a little bit doing those resistant starch videos. But also, I felt like me doing this, just, some knucklehead with a keto cooking channel, what value do I add in repeatedly testing the same blood drop if the FDA has done this 353 times? I think that's the number of tests that they list in the book. So I didn't feel that I really brought anything extra to the table by comparing my readings and saying, well, gosh, maybe the FDA is wrong. Because I figured they're doing it in a far more controlled environment than I can do. And I just didn't want to muddy things up, with my tests. One thing I did do is I did test the old monitor versus the new monitor. And I tested the blood glucose. It was my last strip and I didn't take a picture. And I'm sorry, my bad, I screwed up. It was like a 3 or 4 point difference between the two numbers. So well within the margin of error. I did think enough to take a picture of my blood ketone readings. And this was during my fast, so the readings are fairly high. There you go, you can see them right there. 0.1 difference between the old meter and the new meter. So for the people who may have been concerned when I did that resistant starch video that I switched meters at the very end, well, I did that because I only had one blood glucose test strip left. Hopefully this assuages any concerns you may have about measurement error. First, that the FDA has put both of these devices through the same amount of scrutiny, but then also, I've got this side-by-side that shows pretty consistent results. One of the things that I mentioned in the description and in the pinned comment for that Keto-Mojo review is about the Keto-Mojo upgrade plan that they have. They're rolling this out slowly, and I apologize that I kind of have to be coy about it. Their concern is that if everybody knows how generous this upgrade offer is going to be, everybody's going to be contacting them all at once, and they just don't have the shipping department to handle it right now. With social distancing and everything, it's taking a little bit more time to get orders out, but they plan on getting everybody upgraded that wants to upgrade taken care of by the end of the year. And like I said, when you hear from them, first off, if you have the Bluetooth app on your iPhone or Android device, you will get an invite from them. And trust me, it's a good deal that they're doing here. And then once they get through with that wave, they will open it up to the folks that have the older unit, and those people who have the older unit should just contact customer service. It's a rolling, probably 2.5 month plan that they have. So trust that you will be taken care of. This is not some money move that they're making. In fact, when I spoke with Dorian, their owner, he told me that they're doing this at a 0 profit margin. All they want to do is cover their costs and get everybody upgraded. So I think it's a pretty class act by Keto-Mojo. There will be one more review this week because Chalk Zero has some new Halloween themed product coming out. So I will review that, but then I'm kind of excited I can get those reviews behind me and really get back to some of the cooking videos. I really want to be back on a 2 cooking video per week cadence as often as I can be. Part of that means I can really focus. My number one absolute #1 priority right now is figuring out a hot dog bun. I know I sound like a broken record. I always bring up the hot dog bun. But now I'm starting to feel like my credibility is on the line. I got to get this hot dog bun created. So I'm going to be doing a lot of kitchen experimentation in the coming weeks, and hopefully it yields some interesting things. You know, lots of times kitchen experiments, they don't turn out the way you expect, and you wind up getting something else that's also sort of cool and magical. An example of this is another channel, Heavenly Fan. She was trying to make some noodles and wound up making some keto French fries. And after this brief little break, I'm going to give you my opinion on those. On a pretty regular basis, I get people that email me or direct message me and they tell me, oh, you've got to try this recipe or you've got to watch this video. And as I've mentioned before in this podcast, first, I don't really have a lot of time to dedicate to looking at other people's videos or making other people's recipes. In fact, I kind of feel that when I do, it makes my thought process less pure in terms of what I'm going to make. I want to make sure that whatever I make is coming from my brain and that I'm not just copying someone else. That's not like a big-headed thing or anything like that. It's just, I feel if someone else has already done something really well, then why should I replicate it? Whatever recipe they made should stand on its own. Periodically, though, I will try somebody's recipe and think, wow, this was great. I wonder if I can make it better. So over the past week, I have probably had 10, 12 people tell me, you've got to check out this French fry video from this other channel, Heavenly Fan. So I did. And I'll be honest, I was a little bit skeptical that based on just the couple of ingredients that she used, that this was going to wind up turning into a French fry. But I decided I'd give it a try. With so many people telling me I should try it, I kind of felt I had to. It was the same thing with chaffles. And I kind of ignored chaffles too long, and that's really what kind of made this channel explode over a year ago. So I figured I would try out the fry thing, see what happens. So in her video, Heavenly Fan, she does both a coconut version and she does an almond flour version. And I tried both. I also did a version where I added tiger nut flour to the almond flour. If you watched the 4 new flour videos that I did, which I'll link to up here, I tried out tiger nut flour and found that it imparted sort of a potato type of a flavor to the chaffle that I baked, which isn't surprising because it's a tuber. And I thought I would try that and see if the fries that I made from this recipe had more of a potato taste as a result. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. I also cooked these both in oil and in an air fryer. I didn't try baking them, but I can tell you based on the air fryer experiment, I wouldn't even bother with baking. In fact, I wouldn't bother with the air fryer. Air fryer is good for reheating these, but not great for baking them. So my recommendation, if you make these, is to shallow fry them in some oil, probably avocado oil. If that's not in the budget and you're willing to go a little bit dirty, I would say peanut oil. You do not want the oil too hot. I would target 300, no more than 325 degrees Fahrenheit. So in the 150 to 160 degree range Celsius. It will take about 7 to 10 minutes to cook your fries. I also recommend sifting together your flour and the xanthan gum. This gets rid of any clumps. It also ensures that the xanthan gum gets very well distributed. I would also say, to the best of your ability, mix with a spatula. Fan uses her hands, and let me tell you, that xanthan gum on your hands, that's some gooey stuff. And then you add water and it becomes slick. It's not the easiest stuff to get off. So I would say to the extent that you can, really try and knead it with a rubber spatula. But those are just the tips that I would add to Fan's recipe. Now we're going to taste some that just came out of the air fryer. I have here the coconut fry, and then this is the one that I made with the almond flour and tiger nut. Both of these were made yesterday and I just reheated them in the air fryer. Coconut. I'll render my verdict in a second. I don't know if coffee is officially considered a palate cleanser, but it is what it is. So first, and this might sound a little negative, but hold on for just a second. For those people that say these taste exactly like French fries, I'm going to say you probably haven't had a French fry in a while. The reaction is completely understandable though. For many of us, when we haven't had a certain food in a long time because we're keto, when we taste something that's even sort of like it, we get pretty excited. And as a result, I understand the excitement behind these. I think that if you were to tell me that these were mini churros that weren't seasoned with cinnamon and sugar, I would believe that as much as I would believe that they're a French fry. It's sort of somewhere in between. But the thing is, I think most of us are going to be eating these seasoned, either seasoned with some sort of, like Flavor God seasoning. What would be a good one? Like ranch or something like that. That's a pretty easy and obvious one. Or we're going to be dipping them in a keto condiment of some sort. And once you do that, once you dip something like this in, say, a sugar-free ketchup, it is definitely going to scratch your itch for a French fry. Now, in terms of which version I prefer, I think if I were doing something, like if I were trying to create some sort of churro, I would go with the coconut flour. I think texturally, it is closer to that, sort of a pastry. Almond flour, if you don't have an aversion or allergy to it, I think is the way to go. I think the texture is a lot closer to a potato fry. Additionally, lower carb count. Now, the version that I did with the tiger nut flour, I don't think there's any advantage to adding the tiger nut flour. It didn't give me that potato flavor that I thought it might give me. Additionally, it ratchets up the carbs pretty considerably, like I think by 11 net grams of carbs for an entire batch. And I figure a batch is probably 2 servings. So still, for something that has negligible flavor impact, it has a pretty significant carb impact. Now, I suspect that this recipe is going to be kind of like Deirdre's bread recipe. It's going to be one of those things that a lot of people either emulate or duplicate, and I hope that they give credit to Heavenly Fan for this, because this, for something that is so seemingly simple, the results are pretty impressive, and she deserves credit for that. But back on the topic of reaching out to me with recipes and videos and things like that, I would prefer that if you're going to do that, first, no promises that I'll get around to it, but if you are going to do that, please do not use the contact form on my website. I expressly state what that's for on that page, that it's for business contacts, or if I tell you specifically to contact me through that form, it's not for submitting recipes, it's not for saying, Steve, watch this video, it's not for Steve, will you do a review of such and such a product. It's pretty specifically for business contacts. So thank you in advance for not using that contact form unless I ask you to. Generally, the quickest way to get a hold of me is by leaving a comment on YouTube. I tend to see those most readily. Some slip through the cracks, but for the most part, I seem to catch most of them. Plus, if you've got that question or request, there's a good chance someone else does, and then they can see that you asked and that I responded, and then they don't have to. I'm really sort of thinking some cheese sauce I could dip this into would be pretty good right now. Speaking of cheese sauce, I had done a video last year on melty cheese and using sodium citrate to make some ooey gooey melty cheese, whether you want that for burgers or in one of the corn dog recipes that I do. I know a number of you purchased sodium citrate and wanted to know, is there something else you can do with it? Well, yes. So in the very near future, you can expect to see some sort of a cheesy sauce type of video. Maybe it's a fondue, or perhaps if you had a little more liquid, it becomes something that would be good for nachos or dipping fries in. I will also be doing some sort of cheese soup. I'm thinking bacon, broccoli, cheddar. Who knows? I'm not sure. Maybe I'll do something with a white cheese, like a Swiss, and something with a little bit of a dry white wine in it. Maybe not as a soup. Maybe that would be a good sauce though. So you can expect to see some of those videos in the upcoming future. I am going to have a few more, I don't know that I'd necessarily call them gourmet, but fancier sort of recipes that don't require a whole ton of work. And they'll be using the air fryer, they'll be using the Instapot, and who knows, if it stays warm enough, maybe we'll even do some more stuff out in the smoker or on the grill. But over the last few weeks, I've been doing a lot of different experiments, and the great thing is all of these recipes have turned out. The not as great thing is, for the most part, my family isn't interested in eating the same meal 2 weeks in a row. The exception being those barbecue chicken kebabs with the bacon paste. They wanted those 2 weeks in a row. Also, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to do another resistant starch test. I'm going to do this on potatoes. And depending on the results of that, if it turns out that I can do some sort of potato prep that doesn't have any sort of a blood glucose impact, or at least nothing significant, we could see some recipes from that. Now, I'm not going to call them keto, I'm not going to call them low carb, but we can call them maybe like low blood glucose impact recipes. But that's iffy. It really kind of depends on how the experiments turn out. Now, with Thanksgiving coming up, I'm going to have to see if there's anything else that I would make in terms of Thanksgiving recipes. There could be something I might do, like sous vide with turkey breast. That could be coming. But I did last year manage to get a handful of recipes together that I think could make a decent little keto Thanksgiving playlist. So I will make sure to get that assembled and have that good to go by the middle of November. And finally, to close out the podcast, another little family update. We got the notification that we can start sending letters to Connor, so I'm pretty excited about that. I'm sure he'll be excited to get letters from us. Also, while my wife and I were away in Door County, my daughter enlisted in the Army National Guard. So Courtney will be shipping out in mid-February. Connor will be home in mid-March, so there's going to be 1 month where we don't have our kids here anymore. Then we'll get Connor back, and then probably around summertime, we'll get Courtney back. It's a wild ride, life, I guess, but we're working through it. But I'm glad that I can share this with you, and as I say repeatedly, it means the world to me, the comments and support that you give to me. So thank you very much. I say that so sincerely. So thank you. So I guess that actually wasn't the last thing, because I got one more thing, I think. Last week, it appeared that I didn't have an Easter egg in the video. And the problem was I had my stool positioned in front of the thing, which you've probably seen by now. So another easy one. And then, let's see. Oh yeah, one more thing. If you do go through my old videos and you're looking at the Thanksgiving stuff, so get back into that October, November period of last year. That's when those all came out. In fact, I'll put together a playlist, and I'll link to that at the very end of this video. If you look at that and you think that there's some glaring omission in terms of a Thanksgiving dish, let me know. Put it down in the comments. I'll see what I can do. That, though, is the last thing. So thanks for watching or listening.